let's have a chat about her. She's an important character in the play King Lear, and we're going to have a look now through her I suppose her character arc, her role from the beginning to the end of the play, the important quotes that are associated with her, and the type of points I suppose you could make about her that are relevant to not just her character but to other kind of questions and things that you might expect. So a great quote to start with. It's Albany in Act 4, and don't forget Albany is Goneril's husband. And but let's just say when he's speaking of her here, he doesn't like her very much. He describes her as she that herself will sliver and disbranch from her material sap, perforce must wither and come to deadly use. Isn't that great? Oh God, maybe not. Shakespeare, just. Will I show you this? Look, best Christmas present I ever got. Look, that's from my children who understand what a sad and lonely person I am. The imagery is what I like there. So the imagery is like, it's nature imagery. So you have a tree and they have the branches coming off the tree. And of course the branch can't exist without the trunk of the tree. And essentially what Albany is saying there is what you're doing, what you did is unnatural. The tree is your father, your treatment of your father is wrong, and you are going to be punished for that. And of course that's Goneril's story. She comes into conflict with her father and you don't really blame her at the start. And she makes decisions which result in great suffering for others. She reveals a corruption that lies at the core of her character, and ultimately she pays the price for it. Interesting character, Goneril. I like her. So, who is she? She's Lear's eldest child, we know that, of the 3 daughters, and she's married to the Duke of Albany, which, by the way, not that this matters in any way, is presumed to mean that her power base is the north of Britain, because don't forget, the play is set, not that this matters at all, but the play is set in kind of pre-Christian Britain, not England. And Albany is the archaic term for Scotland. So the idea is that she's in the north, where her sister Regan, her power base is in the south because she's married to Cornwall, which is in the south of England. So what do we know about her? Well, we know, like her sisters, in Act 1, Scene 1, she's humiliated by her father, and therefore, initial impressions, she's quite a sympathetic character. We feel sympathy for her because of the treatment that she endures. So she is subjected to her father's domineering love test and asked, which of you shall we say doth love us most? Which, for any parent to say that to their child is just incredibly insensitive. To say that to your adult children in front of everybody they know and tie it to their possibility of achieving inheritance or independence is incredibly cruel. Sorry, I had the wrong pen in my hand. This is the one I'm looking for. She immediately proves herself to be somewhat cynical, manipulative and intelligent in her response, because she understands her father's character and she exploits his weakness. She flatters him with exaggerated protestations of love, and I think it's worth just listening to some of her speech. She says, "Sir, I love you more than words can wield the matter, dearer than eyesight, space and liberty, beyond what can be valued rich or rare, no less than life with grace, health, beauty, honour, as much as child e'er loved or father found." Now, it's a bit over the top, right? And we know she doesn't mean it. But she knows that's what he wants to hear. So she tells him what he wants to hear. He has the power, but he also has a weakness, and that's his hubris. So she knows that by flattering him, she's going to benefit. So can we really blame her for that? Look what happens when Cordelia doesn't cooperate. But anyway, at the start, her language is florid, colourful, manipulative, and successful. She achieves her goal. She is hypocritical. Cordelia, of course, who is the representative of all that is noble and decent in the play, the opposite, the antithesis to Goneril and Regan, she says, well, Dad, she's talking shit. She doesn't say that. She says, why have my sisters husbands if they say they love you all? So there's a huge amount of hypocrisy in Goneril saying, I love you, Daddy, yet she has a husband. So the point is that Cordelia is saying that what Goneril is saying is nonsense. And we can all see that, but Lear can't see it because he's blinded by his hubris, and Goneril knows that. She is highly intelligent. And again, this is something that we admire in her. Goneril is not a one-dimensional villain. She's not a a boring character who doesn't have any depth. She's a believable human being because she has contradictions in her character, and most human beings have qualities that we can admire while also having qualities that we might dislike. It's the balance that is interesting. She is intuitive. That means she has a good understanding of human nature, and perceptive. She can, see the truth of her father's character, and that's evident at the end of Act 1 when she comments, "The best and soundest of his time has been but rash. Then must we look to receive from his age not alone the imperfections of this long engrafted condition," that's the bit I wanted to refer to, "but therewithal the unruly waywardness that infirm and choleric years bring with them." Sorry, that's the end of Act 1, Scene 1. I should have put in Act 1, Scene 1. Now, what she's saying there is, he's always been a nightmare. A long engrafted condition is behaviours that have typified him for a long time. So Lear's bullying, his abuse of power, his manipulation, all those qualities that we see in Act 1, Scene 1 that alienate us from the audience. She's aware of the fact, not only is this not new, but that it's going to get worse because now it's married to old age or an infirm and choleric years. Choleric being sickly. So she's perceptive. She sees that things are only going to get worse unless she acts. And that's why it's kind of difficult to blame her for acting against her father. He creates this invidious position that she has to cope with. So the important thing is that she is the one that instigates the conspiracy with Regan designed to secure the inheritance because they're afraid that Lear, being so temperamental and unpredictable, could take back what he's given. And to show Lear the reality that he has created. And the reality is that he no longer has any power. She understands that he won't see it like that, and she conspires with Regan to show him. And again, I don't think you can really blame her for that, but let's not go down that rabbit hole. Here's a great quote. She says, "Let's hit together." There's conspiracy. Let's work together. And she says, "If our father carry authority with such dispositions as he bears, this," and this is so important, "this last surrender of his will but offend us." And then her speech goes on and it ends with, "We must do something and it heat," which means we must act and we must act quickly. When she says this last surrender will but offend us, she's saying if we don't do something, he's just going to take what he's given back, and then we'll be in a worse situation. Not only will we have nothing again, but we'll have humiliation to marry to nothing. So in other words, Lear has created a situation in which she feels compelled to act, and therefore, while we will recognise that what she does later on in the play is heinous and corrupt and should be condemned, we must recognise that the initial conflict comes from Lear's behaviour, not from her. And I think that's important. She is a very intelligent, determined and manipulative human being. By Act 1, Scene 4, we see that she was right. We see that Lear's unable to accept that he no longer is the alpha, that he's handed power over. And there's a great line where she says, and her frustration is brilliant, "By day and night he wrongs me. I'll not endure it. His nights grow riotous and himself upbraids us on every trifle." Fantastic. The language is so, stern, and, her frustration is obvious and, again, relatable. By day and night he wrongs us means he's every fucking little thing. He's humiliating me. He's questioning my authority. I'm the queen. He's not supposed to question me. To upbraid is to criticise. He keeps on telling me I'm wrong on every trifle, on every little tiny trivial thing. His nights are out of control. So again, that's Lear's behaviour. Lear handed over power and he is behaving in a way which doesn't recognise that transfer. So again, he has placed her in that invidious, difficult position. She has to act. She engineers a conflict with Lear because she wants them to fight so that she can show him that she's not afraid of him anymore. She instructs Oswald to put on what weary negligence you please, you and your fellows, I will have it come to question. So she's telling him to neglect Lear. In other words, to be disrespectful to him so that he will react And when he reacts, she will show him that she is not afraid of him anymore. She also says, let him to our sister, let him go off to Regan. And then she says, whose mind and mine I know, in that are one, not to be overruled. And then for me, an absolutely crucial quote, idle old man that still would manage those authorities that he has given away. And again, while we can on the one hand recognize that she's dishonest and manipulative and cynical in her dealings with her father in Act 1, we also have to recognize that ultimately the whole crisis, the whole conflict is brought about by Lear's behaviour. That's important at the beginning. Because she's right, he is a stupid old man because he has handed over power and he is trying to act as if he hasn't handed over power, and he's denying reality because he's blinded to the truth that has happened. He thinks that she will obey him because he's her father, never mind the fact that he has handed her political power. So her frustration is relatable. Her sense of frustration is utterly understandable, and that's down to Lear. She is successful. She wants to engineer this conflict so that she can show him that she is no longer intimidated by him, and she succeeds. So when she asks him a little to disquantity his train, his response is to lash out. Into her womb convey sterility. Bloody hell, imagine saying that about your child. Dry up her organs of increase. And then later, feeling sorry for himself, how sharper than a serpent's tooth it is to have a thankless child. And again, Lear's blindness is evident there. He is the one that created this problem. She didn't create the problem. She simply, let's be kind, or not kind, but let's be logical and reasonable. She is simply showing him the truth of a situation that he created. But his response is to lash out, say terrible things to her and feel sorry for her, and then leave for Regan. And it's exactly what she wanted. So she is successful, she is manipulative, she is somebody who is aware of her own power and able to use it. And again, these are all points you can make about her being an interesting character, but all again about themes to do with power and family relationships and so on and so forth. We know that Lear is, I'm just thinking about something else there for a second. Lear is kind of furious and threatening towards her when that conflict comes in Act 1, Scene 4, and yet she just stands there and laughs. He says, yet have I left a daughter who I am sure is kind and comfortable. Again, that's evidence of his blindness. He thinks Regan is kind and comfortable. He's going to learn she's not. When she shall hear of this with thee, with her nails she'll flay thy wolvish visage. Thou shalt find that I'll resume the shape thou dost think I have cast off forever. Thou shalt, I'll warrant thee. So he's like, I'm telling you, I'll do this and I'll take back my power. And she's able to just stand there. She doesn't respond. She doesn't get upset. She doesn't start screaming back at him or threatening him, because she doesn't need to. She understands that at this stage, he is a paper tiger. She understands that he can roar all he likes, but he has been declawed, defanged. He doesn't have the capacity to hurt her. So I think that's interesting. I love the image of, again, as a father, him saying, when Regan finds out what you've done to me, she'll rip the skin off your face. To flay is to take the skin off something, and visage is your face. He calls her a wolf, like an animal. The language is so violent, but again, it's such evidence of his blindness, thinking that Regan's going to help him against Goneril, but also her success. Because those words mean nothing to her, because she has the power. He gave her the power. Apogee is like it's an astronomical term. It's got to do with the transit of objects, in orbits, and it means their high point. And I love that word when it comes to Goneril, because she does have this moment, like, I was talking about Edmund's moments of triumph. She does have this moment of apogee in Act 1. Sorry, that should be Act 2. Apologies, little error there. Act 2. And that's the moment when she walks on stage in Act 2, Scene 4, and she joins hands with Regan, and Lear can see that the daughters are working in league with each other and he can see the truth of the situation. And she enjoys asking him, why might not you, my lord, receive attendance from those that she calls servants or from mine? Now again, her tone appears to, you talk about appearance and reality there. You're talking about how vindictive she is. Her tone appears to be reasonable there. She's saying, look at that, you don't need servants. Look, we've got households full of servants. We look after you. But of course, there's a huge amount of cynicism there. There's a malicious pleasure that she's taken there, because she understands that Lear's retinue is of symbolic importance to him. She understands that, like, the 100 Knights is a symbol for him that he still has power. And she understands that by removing his retinue, by giving him no servants, by making him utterly reliant on her and Regan, she's humiliating him and she's showing him he has no power. So it's a moment when our perception of her begins to change. I always think up until Act 2, Scene 4, there's a certain amount of sympathy, I think more than a certain amount of sympathy for Goneril and Regan, put in this terrible position by their father, who's a bully and who is impetuous and dangerous. But when we see Act 2, Scene 4, when we see them enjoying their success, enjoying their humiliation of him with such relish, it changes the way we view them. It changes our perception of them. When he's clearly suffering, he's clearly, having a mental, psychological crisis, she's unmoved. There's no sense of pity, no sense of empathy. And we can understand he has treated her, she feels so badly, but that, lack of empathy points to a callous cruelty in her nature. And of course, that callous cruelty becomes more and more apparent as the play goes on. So when I say apogee, we'll go back to that word, I mean, like, this is the high point of her in the play. From this point, she goes on a kind of a downward spiral. I think that's a valid point. By Act 3, Scene 4, her cruelty is evident when Gloucester is arrested, and it's she who demands, pluck out his eyes. Regan says, hang him instantly. But we know that Gloucester is blinded. But she's a queen. She's the arbiter of justice and of the law. She's an absolute monarch. And this is her response to somebody who's been arrested for helping her dad, who she's supposed to love, cope, having been, cast out by himself and by his daughters into the storm. So she is a cruel human being. She is depraved. That demand, pluck out his eyes, that's a disturbing image, isn't it? That is indicative of her moral depravity. So she is one of the bad guys of the play. She doesn't start off necessarily like that. She starts off as kind of cynical but realistic. But by the second half of the play, she certainly is being she certainly becomes one of those symbols of all that is wrong in humanity. And that's why her husband, Albany, loathes her. So I just love that photograph. I googled contempt, and that was the photograph that came up. It's a great photograph, isn't it? It's like Albany's just looking at her, shaking his head, crossed arms, going, oh my God. And like, again, it's not that we can't see that she was put in a difficult position by Lear, and it's not that we can't see that she had to act. It's the way she acted that's captured by Albany's disgust here. He's her husband, but he tells her, oh, Goneril, you are not worth the dust which the rude wind blows in your face. He sees her behaviour has demeaned and debased her much more than Lear's love test ever did. That her decision to treat her father the way she did means that she's a worthless human being. He has nothing but contempt for her because he feels you don't treat your father like that. You don't treat a vulnerable old person like that. You don't treat your king like that. And his utter contempt for her, his sense of loathing for his wife is evident when he's talking about her and Regan. He says, you are tigers, not daughters. And then he goes on and asks, what have you performed? And he describes their behaviour as most barbarous, most degenerate. And I think that degenerate, which means sinful, I think that's a great quote to learn, you know, about Goneril, about corruption in the play, about good versus evil in the play, about the power of language in the play. The repetition there is really important. About family relationships. There's 100 different points you could make using that quote. It's a great quote, but it illustrates how she really is by the end of the play. Any sense of sympathy the audience has for her at the beginning, any sense of empathy we have for her at the beginning, it's gone. She is a degenerate and barbaric figure. So there's a wonderful sense of natural justice. She began the play by lying and manipulating somebody, telling them that she loved them so she can take his power. And by the end of the play, she's the victim of exactly the same strategy. It is clear that she is immoral, but also a dupe. A dupe is the victim of a con. She completely underestimates Albany, calling him a moral fool. I think that's a great quote to learn, moral fool. I think it captures something about her corruption. It's, by the way, an example of oxymoron in the play. So an apparently contradictory statement. So to be moral, we think, is to be noble and to be decent and to be the best of us, but she regards morality as foolish. So that gives us an indication of her worldview. But she embarks on this relationship with Edmund, and we can see she's having an extramarital affair, which is, in the world of the play, you know, evidence of her moral depravity. When she kisses Edmund, says, "This kiss, if it dare speak, would stretch thy spirits up into the air. Conceive and fare thee well." I have to say, I really like her there. I know we're not supposed to. I love her confidence. I love her sense of her as a powerful woman saying, "You lucky boy, I choose you." I really think that's very impressive. What I really like as well, is the fact that that is then juxtaposed in the following scene, or two scenes after that, by Edmund's comment. This, "To both these sisters have I sworn my love, each jealous of the other, as the stone or of the adder. Which of them shall I take? Each, both, one, or neither." Now again, that's not of the stone or of the adder. Anyway, "To both these sisters have I sworn my love. Which of them shall I take? Both, one, or neither." So that's obviously a typo there. It should be stung. Not that it matters. So, like, she thinks that he loves her because she's like alpha and impressive, but he doesn't give a shit about her, doesn't give a shit about her sister. All he gives a shit about is power. So he told her he loved her, and in order to manipulate her for power, in the same way she told her father she loved him in order to manipulate him. So there's a lovely sense of natural justice there. And by the end of the play, she's undone by the alliance of Edgar and Albany. And one of the most dramatic moments in the whole play occurs when Edgar finds the letter that she wrote to Edmund at the end of Act 4. And I just like to read the whole thing. I think it's brilliant. Her cynical worldview, her corruption is so powerfully evident here. She says, "Let our reciprocal vows be remembered." So that means they've told each other they love each other. "You have many opportunities to cut him off." She's talking about her husband. She's saying you've loads of opportunities to kill him. "If your will want not, time and place will be fruitfully offered. There is nothing done if he return the conqueror. Then am I the prisoner, and his bed my goal. From the loathed warmth whereof deliver me, and supply the place for your labour. Your wife, so I would say, affectionate Goneril." Like, that's about as caught red-handed as you get. You know, she's married to Edmund, and she's saying to Edmund, "We've told each other we love each other." She's saying, "I hate my husband. I don't want to share a bed with him. I want to share a bed with you. And I want you to kill my husband." So there you go. Conspiracy to murder. And that's the evidence that is used against her at the end of the play. So she is the gilded serpent. She's golden, powerful, intelligent, rich, aristocratic, yet utterly corrupt. It's a great metaphor, great example of language in the play. She is the gilded serpent. She is arrested in Act 5, Scene 3, and she dies by suicide. We know that. But not before she murders Regan in this final act of, familial, cruelty. It's reported by a servant. "Oh, she's dead, your lady, sir, your lady, and her sister by her is poisoned." She confesses it. And ultimately, Goneril, her story is emblematic of Lear's folly. It all has to come back to Lear. The play's called King Lear. It's about him. He gave her royal authority. And her behaviour in the play proves, like her sister, that she is so unsuited to that position. She is petty, corrupt, and unfit. And his decision to hand power to her in exchange for flattery is one of the many reasons why he must be a tragic hero, and why he cannot escape the consequences of the abdication and transfer of power at the end of the play. So there you go. That's Goneril. Loads of information there.